Welcome to the Best of MBS podcast, a collection of the best interviews hosted by Michael Bungay Stanier, best-selling author of The Coaching Habit and How to Begin. Today's interview is from the We Will Get Through This podcast. Here's your host, MBS.
You know, when I created this idea for We Will Get Through This, and I was like, how do I curate a list of people who can contribute to and think about resilience, and how do you build the resources of emotional, spiritual, intellectual, financial reserve that allow you to navigate a difficult life, or just life, which always has got its difficulties with it. You know, partly I went to money's part of the deal. And if you've been a regular listener, you already know that we've had a couple of great people talking about money already. And I knew in my back pocket, I had another colleague and friend who was also a fabulous thinker and speaker and writer on issues of money. And her name is Kerry Taylor, Kerry K. Taylor, just so you don't confuse her for a football player or an auction house or something else, Kerry K. Taylor. And really, she is one of the world's top personal financial bloggers. She's got a unique and fun approach with all things money, and she reaches, millions of readers around the globe every year. She's also the author of a terrific book, 397 Ways to Save Money. So even if you get 10% of those work for you, you're ahead of the game. And in fact, she and I met at a training around keynote speaking. We were both in the process of redesigning and rethinking our keynote speech. And we ended up broken down in a car on the way to an airport. So we kind of knew each other during the training, and then we hung out for 3 hours in a broken down car. So that was fantastic in its own weird way. That was fantastic, not least because we both caught our flights. When I first set up this interview with Kerry, I was thinking, let's talk money. But here's the thing that is powerful about Kerry in this moment. She has been diagnosed with she was diagnosed with an aggressive type of breast cancer last year. It's called triple negative breast cancer. Only 10 to 15% of breast cancers are TNBC. And for those types of cancers, there are fewer treatments and higher deaths. So breast cancer, always scary. Triple negative breast cancer, scarier still. So she has gone through the process of facing and dealing with cancer. And that's a very hard topic to talk about, and one that requires the deepest of resilience and the deepest facing into anxiety and uncertainty. And when we were setting this up, I was like, what do you think, Kerry? Can we talk about this at all? And she's like, why don't we just make this the centerpiece of the interview? And I'm like, I'm thrilled and nervous about doing that. So Kerry K. Taylor, thank you. And thank you for this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I'm here.
You are here. And I'm grateful for that. It must be quite the moment when you have your, I guess, kind of nascent fears confirmed when you get that diagnosis of cancer. What shifts in that moment?
Oh my goodness. I was, everything, everything changes in that moment when the doctor says it's cancer. My life as I knew it changed paths instantly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, before that diagnosis, I was on top of the world. I felt amazing. I had just written and rehearsed and filmed a brand new keynote speech. So I was so excited. The tape came back and people were laughing, and I was so just happy that people enjoyed my words and my presentation. And it was such a great speech that I thought, hey, this is a book. So I wrote a book outline and handed it to my editor. So everything was going really well. I felt amazing, except I didn't. Everything felt awful. I was tired. My brain was foggy. I fell down a flight of stairs. I just had this exhaustion that I'd never experienced in my life. And when I went in to talk to my doctor about it, they tested my iron and said, no, you're fine. You're not anemic. So I thought, okay. And then 2 weeks later, my body gave me the ultimate sign, and I listened. In my right breast, my nipple leaked. And I thought, oh, it's not a good sign.
Right.
So within that moment, I knew something was wrong, and I started going through all the tests. And as the tests came back, it got scarier and scarier. So back in the doctor's office, I knew what the information was going to be. You just don't know how your body or your mind are going to deal with it in that moment. And I just know my husband was with me, and he was so still. It was just, I was like, okay, wow, what next? Right? Okay, what do we do now? And that set up a whole year of treatments, chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. I was fortunate in that I found the cancer early. So it was stage 1. But I was also in that unfortunate position where I had the most difficult cancer to treat. So I was one of those very few women at stage 1 that needs the full deal. So the full chemotherapy. Right. And it was just, I learned a lot of lessons about mindfulness and resilience that got me through, and to this day are still getting me through.
Where did you start? I mean, because I imagine when that happens, if it had been me in a kind of parallel situation, I'd be grasping at all sorts of things. I'd be trying all sorts of things out. I know you're kind of methodical in the way you research. You're thinking about financial advice, and I imagine I'd be like, okay, who do I trust? Where do I go to? What are all the things I could try out? And even that would become a bit overwhelming. So I'm curious to know where you started in this process of self-management to get yourself through what was ahead of you.
Well, I started in denial. I couldn't believe that this was happening to me, because I'd always had the opinion that you can control things in your life, right? You save money, you can exercise, you can eat well. And I have a background. I was a high performance athlete. I used to be a competitive swimmer, competitive cyclist. I used to race Ironman. So it's like, I thought I figured everything out. I mitigated all the risks so I wouldn't get, a potentially terminal disease. And I was so distraught that I had to come to terms with the brutal truth that in life, we have very little control over the things that can happen to us. Right. And it shook my reality just to the core, because, as an organic food eater, a clean life liver, all these things, suddenly, I got the thing that I wasn't supposed to get, because if you eat your vegetables and exercise, you're safe, right?
Right. And if you're fit and you're healthy and you live a good life, and you're all sorts of things, you're going, okay, I've ticked all the boxes. How is it even possible that this happens?
Exactly. So I think the first thing that just grounded me in just the hardest way was that we don't have control over our lives. And I think I became obsessed with trying to figure out how I got cancer. Like, how did this happen? Right. And I talked to my oncologist, who was doing this for over 20 years. And his answer just brought me to tears. He goes, Kerry, it just happens.
Right.
So it's like, wow, you can't prevent it. What? So it was really, really hard for me to come to the understanding that bad things happen in lives, and you can't stop them. So the whole illusion of control, I had to focus on things I could control in my life, and then the things I couldn't control. So, things you can control are your thoughts and your actions. Things you can't control are a progression of a disease. So I had to really sit down and look at the things I could do, and then let go of the things I couldn't do. And that, I think, helped ease my mind as much as possible, because you just have to somehow just hand yourself over.
Right. So, I mean, in some ways, this is a well-worn path. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, has at its heart the same insight, which is you find yourself in circumstances that are beyond your control, and you end up being able to control your thoughts and your actions. I want to talk to you about some of the actions that you have found nourishing and help build resilience. But I want to start with controlling your thoughts, or at least managing or recognizing your thoughts. What did you notice, and what shifted, and what did you do? And how did you play the mind game?
Oh, well, I had to sit down. I have a science background, so I like facts. I like studies, but thoughts aren't facts. right?
So true.
Thinking about the scary things doesn't make them your reality.
Yep.
You can make them feel real if you're prone to catastrophizing. It's that really annoying habit of taking every irrational thought and believing it's far worse than it really is.
Exactly.
But we all have a scary things cliff. And if you climb up and look over the edge, you'll see the thing you fear most. It might feel real. You can lean into it, but being consumed by it, jumping off is not going to help anyone. So I created a fact list, things that I knew were good about my diagnosis and things that I was getting done. So I had a fact list. So every time I felt stressed, I'm like, okay, well, the surgeon report says I had clean surgery. They got it all out. It didn't progress to my lymph nodes. That's another good thing, right? I'm doing this horrible chemotherapy. It's 7 rounds, good. That's proven to eradicate the cells in my body. So I kept listing off these positive things that I was doing and knowing about. And I created habits too. I mean, as a former high performance athlete, my surgeon said that athletes do really well with chemo. And that surprised me because I was like, how? But once the muscle memory of doing sports and the mind memory of preparing to do sports kicked in, I could see why he would say that. Because suddenly the kind of routines that got me to the end of the finishing line at the end of an Ironman race were the exact same habits and thought processes that got me to the end of chemo. So it was, I put my running shoes in front of the house, at the front door, so that I would put them on and go for a walk. Seeing the cue, reducing the friction to getting my shoes on made it easier for me to get my daily exercise, right? So, and the flow of race. So swimming, there's a certain flow that you have when you're in the zone. And you can have this with anything in your life. If you're a writer or a speaker, we all know that feeling of flow where things just feel effortless and easy.
Yeah.
So I would try and think about that in my mind from when I was a swimmer and try and reestablish that when I was trying to get some exercise or my thinking patterns or sitting in the chemo ward, receiving chemotherapy in my veins. It was the flow of, okay, this is part of the process. Get in the zone, I guess.
That's so great. Yeah, I love that insight about getting in the zone and understanding that that's not just a endorphic high you get from running. I mean, personally, I've never felt it swimming. For me, swimming is just a extended version of drowning. So I've never hit a flow state around that. But I have with cycling and with running and some other things as well. So I do understand that. But it's such a powerful insight to understand that ritual and routine and repetition is part of what allows a flow state to open up. And by setting yourself up to allow to keep accessing those habits and those rituals and repetitions, you allow yourself to be in that flow state, which is a kind of optimal performance state.
It completely is. And a big part of that is also focusing on the present, right? Because if you're thinking about tomorrow, it's really hard to get into the flow in the moment. I've always been someone that's focused on my future self. Unfortunately, I'm a financial person, so my whole gig is getting people to save for the future, right? I'm like, save. Sacrifice some needs of your present self so that your future self will thank you when you hit the future. So before I was diagnosed, I was all about save your money, right? When I got diagnosed, I was like, spend it. Right. And now I'm kind of back in a nice, happy middle ground. So I learned a lot of lessons there about, you need to enjoy your present a lot more. It's not all about the future.
And you have 15 cars that you're now looking to sell. So
I own just a tiny smart car and 4 bicycles. So I think I'm pretty frugal there.
My guess is if you're a peak athlete, your bicycles are probably worth more than most of the cars that are out there. So it's another thing.
I hate telling people that, but it's true. But I think so. The other thing that really is still getting me through things today is the present. So when I was first diagnosed, I wanted to solve all the problems now. Right. I was mentally trying to get through, wrap my head around all that treatment, all the different scenarios, the genetic testing, the surgery. I was trying to chart out all the scenarios and troubleshoot all the side effects. The thing is, many of them didn't even happen. So I wasted all this mental thought process on thinking what if rather than just being. So, I mean, cancer is not something that can be planned and conquered in one day. The disease requires patience. So if you don't have patience, cancer is not the disease for you, because you have to really sit down and go through, the process. So, I was stressed about a lot of the things people were stressed about, like losing their hair and whatnot, and all the uncertainty. So in order to step through all the uncertainty, you kind of can't let the unknown future steal your present, I guess is the saying. So I had to live for today in the moment. And I got a big calendar and would write the days down with treatment days, resting days. And every day that went by, my daughter, who was 7 at the time, my husband, we would cross off another day. Because another lived day was another day I got through it. And so I didn't look too far ahead. It was just getting to 5 p.m. where I could cross that day off.
That's great.
And it helps so immensely. So I would say that cancer taught me a lot to live for today, because tomorrow's a big unknown and it's impossible to plan for every nuance.
Yeah, it's that weird tension about a sustainable life. And I've heard it in the context of how you think about running a company, but I think the language applies to life as well, which is, here's what's in my head. I'll just say it's like plan like you're going to live forever, live like you're only going to live today.
Yeah.
And they're contradictory. They're contradictory statements, but actually it's always in the tension between two things that are true yet contradictory. Wisdom lies. And it feels like part of what you're pointing us to is some of that wisdom around finding the balance between needing to plan and needing to live.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just the ability to focus on the now and take small daily steps. They can get you to the bigger goal, focus on habit, not the outcome. So my goal wasn't to run a marathon like I used to. It was to walk around the block. And every day, if I'm closer to walking around the block, maybe one day I can run another marathon, right? So building the base.
Hey, Kerry, I'm curious to know, what else did you have to learn to say no to? And these are, I'm thinking, past expectations about yourself or beliefs about the world. There's clearly shedding that's going on to help you transition through this. And what else did you let go as part of this journey?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, when I was diagnosed, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post on social media. I had booked all these speaking gigs and I had to cancel them. And I just said, I'm having a medical emergency. I didn't tell anyone because I think I felt ashamed for having cancer. It was just something that was so far off my radar that I thought that's something.
Right, this is not on brand.
Yeah, this isn't right. This is so off brand. This will never happen. Like I just felt ashamed, right? And the way a few close people to me reacted, it really kind of solidified that. Like, oh, what did you do to deserve that? Right? What in your life did you do? And then people would distance themselves from me because they wanted to see what I did that was different from them. So it got them off the hook from possibly being ill in the future as well. So I really had to let go of the shame of having this happen, because it just happens, right? So the perfection, I'm such a perfectionist. Everything I write, I want it to be perfect. I go on TV, I want to hit, the mark, I beat myself up. And
you wrote to me before this interview going, how long is the interview exactly? Because I want to know exactly what I need to prepare so I can hit my lines and hit my marks. Yeah. And you're the only guest who's come back with that kind of level of, I need to understand the rules of the game so that I can play the game really well.
Well, I mean, I do like national television live on
You
air
do.
stuff too.
Exactly.
So I mean, you got to know, are you doing like a 2-minute segment, a 5-minute segment? That's just, I think, professional. But, like I want to prepare enough,
Yeah.
content for those segments. So that's just respecting, the audience and respecting the time of the media outlet, right? So that to me is just a
Sure.
normal question. But yeah, sure. I mean, I want to make sure, that things are right. But the perfectionism, I've really, when you lose, how's this? So when you lose 20% of your body mass, you have no body
Mm.
hair, you've got no hair, no
Yeah.
eyelashes, no eyebrows, like being stripped down to the core of your
Yeah.
existence. Like there's no secrets. There's no reason to even attempt perfection because it's just, I was in survival mode, right? My
Right.
perfect didn't exist. My reality was I had to walk every day, drink water every day, make it through the day, right? So
Mm.
it kind of erased all that need to have, good hair or, any of the ridiculous nuances we have that we think are important because they're not. I mean, when you're stripped down, the
Yep.
only thing that matters is the people in your life and that you love them. And that's really it. So, I had to just isolate myself and surround myself, with the people that mattered most.
Yeah.
And those people that had negative things to say or couldn't deal with my diagnosis, because that happens a lot too. People just can't deal with it. Let that go. And I think that was really tough for sure.
I so appreciate you sharing the story with us and being vulnerable and just giving the insights around here. And so all my questions are probably just on the wrong side of too nosy. But I'm going to ask them anyway and know that, you're a professional, you'll manage them in a graceful way.
I hope so.
I'm sure you will. I am curious to. Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge that your new short hair looks awesome. By the way, I'm liking it more than the longer hair that you used to have. But that's just my personal opinion.
It's very curly now. I've got chemo curls. Totally it grew back curly, and it grows vertically. I mean, it's just this crazy. It's like growing up. I was lucky because when we hit the pandemic, I was like, oh, I'm never going to get a haircut now. So I have a post chemo pandemic pixie. Like it's just a mixture
perfect.
No one else gets to have except recent cancer patients. So I'm living it. And, I mean, I've had the same hairstyle for, I guess, 42 years.
Right.
I've always resisted change. I hated change. I would manage and mitigate against any weird change, right? And then here I am, now I get to try all these hairstyles I've never had before. So yeah, let's go curly. Whatever.
How do you think about relationships differently now?
Oh boy. Very differently. I would say one of the most impactful things that happened to me over the last year was that I met a group of women who are also cancer survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a level of friendship and understanding I've never had in my life. This group of women found me when I was newly diagnosed, and they literally picked me up off the ground where I was messy crying and helped me because they had walked through the experience and they were on the other side. And because I could see them and see that they were healthy, I felt like I could be like them and get there as well. So they guided me through everything. And it was the most selfless, helpful, amazing experience. And many of them have young children too. So it was everything from offering to do a meal train to help me parenting, take me to appointments. If I had a question about, some medical diagnoses that doctors aren't always good at explaining, they can be very cold. These women would explain it to me in a more relatable term based on, where they've been and how they've experienced, a chemo drug or whatnot. So I think the relationships I developed from my support group just blew my mind that these networks of women exist. We're kind of secret and quiet, but it's not necessarily a group you want to join. But
Right.
but to have
But if you have to join a really good one. Yeah.
And it just, I think like they're just messaging me now. Like when I first went back on television, they all were cheering me on, all these messages. And it's a level of support I don't normally get doing media because people aren't always so supportive. You know, they look at ways to drag you down.
Mm-hmm.
And these women just built me up. You know, they cheered me on every step of the way. Whether I'm writing about cancer or talking about money or whatever, they rebuild. So I think that level of relationship is just very eye-opening. And if you are newly diagnosed with cancer, I would suggest definitely find a young adults group if you are a young adult, because otherwise being in the chemo room can be very isolating and very lonely because everyone is so much older. So that changed my life, and it still does, because these women will be with me forever and I will be by their side as well. And I'll be there for the next woman in the area that, needs support, needs help. Definitely. My husband is incredible. I mean, he's unwavering. You know, a lot of people with cancer experience this phenomenon called cancer ghosting, where people who've been in your life just disappear. And it's so strange. Like, I couldn't believe that happened. Husbands leave wives. It happens.
Right.
But the people in my core group were just so supportive of me, and they let me be messy on the floor. And then they reminded me, you know, here's your running shoes, go for your walk, right? Like, you know, everything from making food, stocking the fridge. So when I was feeling well enough to eat, it was there. You know, all these little things can make such a big impact. Childcare. The women would come and take my daughter and give me an afternoon to sleep. So these sort of relationships are so important.
Kerry, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you. I get a lot from this, and I don't have anybody immediately in my life with cancer, but it's still a very inspiring story to hear, because your story goes beyond managing the shock and the immediacy and the anxiety and the fear of cancer. It speaks to a deeper way of living a life as well, I think. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for having me on the show. And anytime.
Well, for people who want to find out more about who you are, Kerry K. Taylor, where will they find you out in the electronic world?
I think the best place is always my blog. So squawkfox.com, and that's SQUAWKFOX.com. And there's a lot of goodies there to help people manage their lives, their financial lives, in really helpful ways.
Kerry, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Michael.
We hope you enjoyed this Best of MBS interview. Want more great content? Head to mbs.works. There you'll find MBS's new podcast, 2 Pages. You can learn about his best-selling books, and you can join the newsletter. That's mbs.works.
I hope you've signed up for my newsletter, The Works with me, MBS. Every week, you get a key essential distillation of some piece of wisdom, a tool, an insight, a way of working that will allow you to be a force for change that will unlock your greatness. Sign up at mbs.works.